Hello, good morning and welcome to NewsX. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, across all our social media handles. We're Joy News on TV. Coming up within the next 60 minutes, President-elect John Dramani Mahama establishes team to gather and receive information from the public regarding suspected acts of corruption. Also coming up, President Akufo-Addo petitioned to remove the Chief Justice, Gertrude Torkornoo. We'll analyze that this morning here on NewsDesk, plus business updates as well. My name is Faustina Safo. It's a good time to take a seat and be my guest. Thanks for choosing us. We are your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Now, President-elect John Dramani Mahama has established a team to gather and receive information from the public regarding suspected acts of corruption. The team is chaired by Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, his Member of Parliament for North Tom. Other members of the team include the former Auditor General Daniel Dumelovo, also retired Commissioner of Police Nathaniel Kofi Boakye is on that list, private legal practitioner Martin Pegbu, and investigative journalist Raymond Archer. Now, what would be the focus of this team and what would they be looking out for? Let's bring in Vitus Azim. He's an anti-graft campaigner. I also have Edem Senano on the show this morning. He's a member of Africa Union of Anti-Corruption Board. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Let me start with you, Edem. What exactly should this team be looking out for in the first place?
Well, I'd like to believe that one of the reasons why they've set it up at this time is potentially the likelihood that some persons may be attempting to move assets or transfer resources that ideally should be still in the public, be available for the public good. And so what they're doing is to ask the public, are you aware of any such things going on? And gathering such information, which they will have to hand over. They are not yet in government. The institutions of state must be allowed to work. So I think that probably is the approach they are using to try and get as many people as possible to give them information, which they will have to then cross-check before it can be used.
But how effective will this team be when it comes to fighting corruption?
It will be effective because this is a whistleblowing approach. It's something we use as a standard. It's good practice across the world that you have whistleblowing people who have information, and typically what will happen is that you may have 2-3 people giving information that then makes something that may be purely speculative more objective, because you had different people give you different, which can be cross-checked. So whistleblowing is an own way of gathering information, and when they validated, it then becomes a good source for investigation and prosecution. So it can be effective to the extent that you are able to encourage people to give information, and they feel that their identities will be protected, they will not be exposed or put themselves at risk by engaging in trying to support the process.
But then I'm wondering, how will this affect the running of government, especially when there are claims that this could be a political witch hunt for individuals who are exiting this government? And then we're wondering, because of the Office of the Special Prosecutor is tasked to deal with some of these issues of corruption, wouldn't that be a duplication of roles?
Well, not necessarily. I think that, in fact, if you ask me, this should be institutionalized. So every government knows that at the end of the government, in the transition period, one of the committees to be set up will be an anti-corruption the fact-finding committee, allowing citizens who have information, so that if you think that in between you're going to hide money or transfer resources or change documentation on land, whatever it is, I think that it's something that ultimately perhaps we should be looking at institutionalized, so people are more cautious when they get into government, knowing full well that there will be days where public members are allowed submit the information they have. Now, as to the potential for, let's say, witch hunting, I think the reason why their responsibility should be limited only to the extent of gathering the facts, and they need to also be very circumspect and sensitive with how these facts are handled, such that then persons' integrity, reputations are not damaged unnecessarily. So limiting them to just fact-finding, and if they have the right professional expertise, which I assume they do with AS people, Kofi Abuachi, the Domlambo and Co., Martin Ko, but I think they have the skill set to know how to be sure that the information they are gathering is valid. The overlap is the reason also why they should just gather facts and not get into, any investigative prosecution or not. When they get into government fully after 7th January, all such data should be handed over to the OSP or any other relevant organs like TRAJ for them to do the follow-up.
Let me bring in Vitus Azim at this point. He's an anti-graft campaigner. Let's look at the makeup of this team, comprising of Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, Norton MP. We also have Martin Pebo, a legal practitioner there. We see the former Auditor General in there, Yao Demelevo, as well. How do you think these individuals can bring their expertise on ground, and how will that influence this anti-corruption drive that government is pushing?
Well, these are people that have either spoken against or acted against corruption in the past. We've seen the work that led to the removal of Mr. Demelevo from the Office of Auditor General. We've seen how Honorable Ablakwa has unraveled a lot of scandals in recent times. We've seen Martin Pebo speak on these issues in the media. And of course, Acha was, these days I don't hear of him, but he has been a very good investigative journalist. So when you look at the team, I believe that there are people that can take the matters up seriously and come out with the desired expectations of Ghanaians. However, people may look at it as a political group that is known to be against the NPP from their pronouncements and from their actions. And you see, that's where the previous speaker mentioned political witch hunting. People are going to look at it from that light, especially those in the opposition. So I would have expected one or two people that either come from the NPP or some other opposition party or are perceived to be neutral in terms of their partisanship. That would help to ensure or to assure Ghanaians that there's transparency and fairness in whatever they do. The other aspect of it is, like I think you mentioned, there are already existing anti-corruption institutions. Are we not happy with what they have been doing? Can't we give them the required resources to recruit professionals and to carry out their work more effectively than we've seen in the past? So these are some of the issues that maybe the positives and the negatives that you may see in this team. Because the president-elect has already promised Ghanaians that he's going to cut down on government expenditures by bringing down the ministers to 60. Now, if you reduce the ministers to 60, but come up with various committees, you are obviously going to pay them, if not a full-time salary. It may be, at least there will be some allowances and costs involved, in addition to the existing anti-corruption institutions. So that's the other side of it that you may also look at.
Important points you have raised there, Vitus Azim. Let's look at what area they should focus on when it comes to governance. What should be their key area of focus as we speak?
I think that there are certain issues that we necessarily need to look at or give priority to. The National Cathedral project is an area that requires immediate action. First, how much money have been spent? Were those expenditures justifiably put into the project? And what are the results? Then you look at the money that disappeared from the Ghana Commercial Bank, tax revenues that somebody just took out. That's an area that we need to look at. There are Japa deals where we paid people when the whole project was not yet approved by Parliament, not go through the necessary procedures. PDS2, which started, people were already paid monies for some services, but it didn't actually take off very well. There are quite a number of them that would require some attention from this team. But of course, it will also depend on the information that citizens are willing to provide to the team. And it's not just like running to say, oh, this man has stolen money. You must try to provide evidence to support your allegation. And these days, with the telephones and all that, people should be able to capture this information as evidence. But also, there are other issues that have been carried out by the investigative journalists. The recent one, that's the National Service Authority scandal, which they tried to get a court injunction for against the publication. That's an area that the information is already given by the investigative journalists from the state. So these are the quick fruits, the hanging fruits that can easily be plucked to give the team a credible start.
Thank you, Vitus Azim. He's an anti-graft campaigner. I spoke earlier to Edem Senanu. He's a member of the African Union Board for Corruption. Away from that, President Akufo-Addo is being petitioned to remove the Chief Justice, Gertrude Torkornoo, from office over allegations of misconduct and incompetence. Well, the petition accuses the justice of constitutional and administrative breaches. The petitioner argues that these alleged actions undermine the credibility and integrity of the judiciary. Well, on your screens now is just a bit of that petition as we look through it. It's written by Stephen Kwekwo Asare. He's a citizen of the Republic of Ghana, and he is pushing for the Chief Justice to be removed. He goes on to make his argument. He says the legal basis of my petition is Article 1461 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. For the avoidance of doubt, my petition focuses on stated misbehavior and incompetence related to the Chief Justice's administrative functions as head of the judiciary responsible for its supervision and administrative duties under Article 1254 of the Constitution. My petition does not arise from the Chief Justice's exercise of her judicial function. So he's giving clarity now. He says, accordingly, the petition does not challenge any decision, orders, or directives issued by the Chief Justice in the performance of her duties as Justice of the Supreme Court, including those made to enforce judgments, decrees, or orders in cases she has adjudicated. I fully understand, respect, and value the importance of decisional independence. It is my understanding that upon the receipt of this petition, Your Excellency, regarding referring to the President, shall, acting in consultation with the Council of State, appoint a committee consisting of 2 justices of the Supreme Court, one of whom you shall appoint as chairman, and 3 other persons who are not members of the Council of State, nor members of Parliament, nor lawyers. And he goes on to state, see Article 1466 of the Constitution. So he's just running us through some of the process this would have to go through. He goes on to say, it is my further understanding that the committee shall inquire into the petition and recommend to you regarding, he's referring now to the President, whether the Chief Justice ought to be removed from the office on the grounds maintained in this petition. I affirm my understanding that all proceedings herein shall be held in camera, and the Chief Justice is entitled to be heard in her defense by herself or by a lawyer or other expert of her choice. So just run us through some of the key things he's looking forward to. And I have with me the petition here, so we'll take it paragraph by paragraph. I have with me CDD's Dr. Kojo Asante. He joins me for some analysis on this as we look at some of the key concerns the petitioner raised in his petition. Thank you so much for your time. He's raising two major concerns. Incompetence is one of them. And I'm just opening the petition for our audience watching us now. The petition would be on your screen so that it's easier for us to refer to the petition. And we're just finding out if it indeed has enough grounds to constitute her removal. Kojo, your thoughts? I'm sure you've gone through this petition.
Well, good morning. I mean, so let me be clear. It's also because my time is short. I mean, certainly in terms of the competency and the merit of the petition, I think there will be an opportunity if it's forwarded that the process is take hold for that to be determined. But I think from our position as for CDD, Professor Sari is as a citizen within his rights, and we know his very candid views on the performance of the judiciary and Chief Justices over time, and therefore, he making this move, I think, is within his right. But I think the issue for us, and it's something we have, advocated for a long time, that there is definitely a challenge with the administrative role of the Chief Justice over time. That the particularly with empaneling justices and so on has become a big issue, a controversial issue for, that keeps coming up. And every Chief Justice that's come, we've had these kinds of issues arise. And we have to find a way to deal substantively, with all those structural deficiencies, with the way the court is arranged and the way the Chief Justice's role and his powers, the powers that are given to her, is exercised. So, I mean, this, for us, the removal proceedings are almost like the only constitutional check that is laid out for disciplining that kind of process. And we think it's a very last resort kind of option. We prefer more discussion about reform, is discussion about whether we should have a clear definition of the cap on the number of Chief Justices we should have. Those are the issues we want to pursue around it. But of course, this has come up, and we'll see how it proceeds. But our interest really, as I said, is more to look at how we can deal with the structure that has been put in place for the judiciary, which I think at the moment is not really serving us, and people are raising a lot of concern. The Afrobarometer studies show very clearly that the trust levels in the court is reducing, and most of it, I would say, driven by these, sort of symbolic political issues and so on that keep coming up.
Let's look at the basis of this petition, and I'm going to pick your brains when it comes to your legal background, because he's raising key concerns. The Chief Justice request for the appointment of 5 justices of the Supreme Court is one of them. He also feels that that constitutes a breach of some sort of protocol. Another key concern he raised is the constitution of panels and transfer of judges. And he raises this point in paragraph 24. He says, there have been reported incidents of the Chief Justice direct interference with duty and duly constituted panels with no explanation or public interest reasons. For so doing, we consider the reconstitution of panels to be beyond the Chief Justice's administrative powers and amounts to a direct interference with the impartiality and independence of duly constituted judicial panels. Is that the case?
So, as I've said, I don't want to be drawn into the specifics of the merit or demerits of the petition, which, I think that made that very clear, because I think that once this has been triggered, let the processes, terminate. Because for me, some of the issues that have been raised as to the exercise of powers that may be motivated by bias, these are evidential issues that have to be determined, in the appropriate context. So I think I wouldn't be doing anybody except I'll be doing people at services. I am now going to litigating or determining those kinds of cases or speculating on people's intentions on air. So let's leave it for what it is, and let's see if the processes that have been triggered, is followed through, and then we'll have an opportunity to look at how it's being handled. But as I said, for us, there is a much bigger issue. This will not address the more fundamental issue of how we have currently structured the role of the CJ, which I think keeps generating some of these challenges that have been coming up. Hopefully, as has been promised, we get an opportunity to go back to constitutional review, and maybe we can deal with some of those matters.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have to go. Yes, I have to go now.
Okay.
And we can talk some more later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kojo Asante, for joining us. We respect your request, but we would be engaging a lawyer in subsequent bulletin as we look at the merit and demerit of this petition that has been brought for, and some of the key concerns that the petitioner is raising about the conduct of the Chief Justice. And we'll be looking at it for the basis and if indeed this is something that the president would want to look at. Well, away from that, salaries of public sector workers for the first 3 months of 2025 with the entire government machinery is at risk of shutting down because the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, has failed yet again to present a mini budget before the House. The document was expected to be presented on Monday, but the minister did not show up. On Tuesday also, he failed to show up in Parliament, igniting fierce controversy. Well, we'll be taking you to Parliament. My colleague Kweku Asante is on the ground for us. Parliament is sitting today. Kweku, first off, what should we expect?
Government shutdown if the 2025 mini budget is not approved. The mini budget will cater for the first quarter of 2025, that is January, February and March. It will pay government salaries and it will ensure that government agencies keep running when a new government comes in place before it presents its substantive budget. But that is all at risk because the mini budget, which is supposed to be about 68.1 billion Ghana cedis for the first quarter of next year, has still not been presented. Parliament has been sitting since Monday. It has been on the order paper, and that document has still not been laid by the Finance Minister in Parliament. On Monday, there was a big controversy over this, and the indication was that the Finance Minister will do it on Tuesday. Tuesday has come, Parliament has sat, and Parliament has since adjourned, but there has been no movement on that.
I hope there's no conspiracy to make it impossible for this to be laid, to be taken, until Parliament, the 8th Parliament expires. The whole world would have known that it was a deliberate decision of somebody not to lay this to be taken. I hope the rumors circulating are false. I just hope it's false.
But the 2024 NPP running mate, who is also the MP for Menchia South, Matthew Opoku Prempeh, says the NDC MPs are simply after their own interests.
Mr. Speaker, it is not the first time in this House that even a minister brings a document and decides that I'm going to withdraw the document. It will not be the first. So the fact that the Speaker has got the expenditure vote on account doesn't mean the Minister of Finance, in the light of what the Supreme Leader, Osei Chairman Sabotu, said, certain things might have happened on the physical space in this country, such that the Finance Minister may be looking at the figures very well.
But Eric Opoku, who is the ranking member on the Agri Committee, says the NPP side have lost. And it appears to him as simply not interested in doing the business of Parliament.
Their tenure has not ended. They have not handed over yet. They still have a duty to perform under the Constitution of Ghana. We have gone through several transitions. No president has ever avoided a critical duty like this in our nation. The new government will be ushered in early January. So we need expenditure in advance of the budget to be able to pay salaries from January, February, March until a new budget is introduced into this house.
Carlos Ayinkra says the NDC will only get a mini budget if they agree to support government in terms of the 1D, 1F tax waivers that is currently before the House.
Allow us to bring up the government business for us all to debate and agree to disagree. But you don't tell us what to do. Mr. Speaker, if you wish to ask us what we want to do first, we don't want to present any bills right now. We want to put 1D, 1F exemptions on the floor so that we debate it and agree to disagree. That is where we want to commence from.
But former Majority Leader Osei Chairman Sabonso has been offering some firm commitments on this matter.
We are where we are. However, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest strongly that the minister is aware of his responsibilities and he is not minded to renege. And certainly the voting account will be presented in the House. I'm just saying that as I've been doing, I'm not able to do that because this morning when we met, he wasn't there. And because he wasn't there, I have no instructions from him. I cannot present the paper on behalf of the minister. But the needful will be done.
If this document is not presented, salaries will not be paid in January, February, and March of 2025. The government will completely grind to a halt and there will be a government shutdown. And that is why both sides of the House are working together to ensure that this mini budget is presented so that government is not shut down in 2025. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Well, that's a report by my colleague Kweku Asante, just wrapping what exactly happened in Parliament yesterday. And today, Parliament is sitting. We'll take you there shortly. But in the studio, I have with me Dr. Dixon Adumakukesi. He is Member of Parliament for Anyan Sotum. He's also in Parliament. He's been in Parliament yesterday. We're just looking at some of the key things that are playing out in Parliament. We expected that the Finance Minister would lay the expenditure in advance of appropriation from Monday. Today is Wednesday. Why the delay, though?
Yeah, so let me make some clarifications.
Okay.
We all know that the document was brought to the House way before elections. Yes. And what we've made clear to the NDC, or shall I say the opposition, is that certain policy directions were factored into what was brought. We were under the impression that we were going to win the election. And you know, our flag bearer's direction was more of communication, the digitalization. And as much as possible, I think the initial budget we brought to the House factored it in so that it would hit the ground running. Be as that it may, we lost the elections, whether you know, we like it or not. The plans has to change, and Finance Minister has to readjust the numbers and make it as bare as possible, minusing the policy direction of the MPP. And this is something that we all have to understand. And by virtue of that, Finance Minister needs time to do a thorough work and to bequeath to the NDC administration an appropriate chest to start off with. So I'm wondering why they are hassling or not understanding the fact that Finance Minister needs to readjust what we're leaving for them, you know, and it's a matter of making sure that what he lays is crisp and good, and also bearing in mind the fact that people need to be paid. So I think that it was much to do about nothing. We are hoping that once Dr. Amin Anta is done and is ready to put it out, and bear in mind, the NDC has objected many things that we thought we were going to do to help the nation. And one that was very dear to my heart is making EPA an authority. And I think that when you make Environment Protection Agency an authority, it inures rather to their benefit. I mean, they're going to be able to then employ more people, and is to the benefit of Ghana. So it begs the question, and there's one interesting thing. When they were in opposition, they thwarted government, work. And now that they are going to be in a new administration, they finally now see reason for a lot of things that we were pushing that they were very hesitant about. And it's funny that the minority is now, as it is, asking us to do government work. I mean, it's quite rather theatrical that the minority, and I made mention that, for now, they need to lobby us. Very interesting.
Why? Why do they need to lobby you? Because really, there are key issues before the House, which you were looking to finalize on with Parliament reconvening. The 140 million euros you put aside for the purchase of ships. Wondering how important that is at this time. There are also some tax exemptions which the NPP is pushing for the majority. We also know that there's some 250 million loan World Bank facility that you're hoping to push through. And all this, we haven't seen any finality to it yet.
Well, there was one very crucial thing that we made aware to a lot of people, that many of the items, some have been on the book for over 4 years. Some have been on for 3 years. Some have been there for 2 years. And what Majority Leader Afejo Markin was saying, I think on Monday, was that people are talking as if these are new things. These were on the ticket before we went to elections. And it didn't just happen overnight that we want $250 million, which we all know at this point will hit the account of the new administration. So as it stands now, if you are hindering all of these things, at the end of the day, we are hoping for a very smooth transition. We are hoping that all the things that we said were in the interest of Ghana doesn't change, regardless of who the new administration is. And I think that as we continued with Pokwasi interchange, which was started under another administration, as we continued with UGMC, as we continued with the, let me say, the Abosokai interchange, these were all things that were on the ticket in 2016.
So if it's been on the ticket for so long, you say some 3 to 4 years, why the rush to get it passed at this time? Well, we have just less than 3 weeks for this.
This is not a rush. Mind you,
end its job.
Mind you, these were the things that we were screaming to the Speaker to reconvene us to get done. And it is, unfortunately, it was not heeded to. So what we are making clear here is that providing a budget to run this country for the next 3 months was what we were screaming about when they were dancing around and marching on the floor of Parliament. And now the same people who were dancing and marching to stop government work are now all of a sudden awakened to the fact that they delayed a very essential thing. And mind you, these things are timely in the sense that if we don't do this, we'll not be able to then even swear in the 9th parliamentary, candidates, and then be able for them to swear in the Speaker, and then the Speaker swears in the, President through the CJ. So all of these things need to happen, and we also even need to listen to the President, his last address to the nation before a new President comes on board. So these are things that are clockwork, and we need to be mindful of that and to make sure that we do it. Now, I think that to be fair to Mr. Speaker, he made mention that a lot of the things that we're hoping to do cannot be done because of the short, interval that we have. Agreed. He was even thinking that we should work on Saturday. so that we can cover more grounds regardless of the limitations in time. And since we may end either Friday or Saturday and break, this one is not a closure, but a break for Christmas festivities. I'm hearing that we'll be back on the 28th and possibly work through to either the 5th or 6th of January. And then we hit the gavel and bring to a closure this rather historic parliament and this hung parliament that was on Ghana's democracy for the past 4 years. So I think that a lot of us are doing reflections. I'm sure that both leaders, Afenyo Markin and Ato Forson, are already putting together their summary too, because they need to bring also to a closure the 8th Parliament literally at the end of this meeting. And I'm already reflecting on some of the things that I think they'll be putting in there. And what we would hope for is that there'll be never a time where parliamentarians will put fist blows on the floor, which happened during our tenure, one of the lowest point during this 8th Parliament. But then, I'm very hopeful, and that Ghana has spoken, and Afenyo Markin said it quite crisp, that we concede to the glaring, colossal defeat, and it's a matter of what the Ghanaian voters want, not what we were proffering. Though we still think that we had a very powerful, audacious and bold solution for the country, the people have said that we should step aside and allow for another administration to continue. And
it's a good time to get your thoughts on what you'll be missing in this 8th Parliament, because you're one of the members of Parliament whose service to the nation would end once the 8th Parliament, ends its job. And so we're looking at the happenings in Parliament for the past 4 years. What were some of your high moments?
Well, let me say that, quite frankly, because of the nature of this Parliament, we went through so many things. Every day, we literally had to be in Parliament. And the 9th Parliament will be much relaxed. Somebody was jokingly saying that even if the NDC splits themselves into a day and night, group, there would always still be more than the MPP caucus. And by virtue of that, people will have more time to spend in their constituencies, and which we didn't have the luxury of, and we almost lost lives. I mean, one of our, Tahiru, got into an accident trying to rush to Parliament to be counted. And I remember having to stitch him in the restroom right by the chamber, these are some of the stories that I think later on will come out and share.
Interesting.
And
you mean Katie Hammond?
No. Because the northern region, was it? Yeah, I think to Feru.
Oh, to Feru. Okay,
yes.
Because Katie is Tahiru.
Feru.
Okay.
We had to stitch him up. And these are stories of the 8th Parliament that, he was away and we needed to count him. Unfortunately, we literally would have lost him to this car accident. And the car accident happened within 500 meters from Parliament. And these are some of the war stories that we have that many observers were not privy to. But be it as it may, I think that the 8th Parliament experience, which many people know, has been very unique, very peculiar, and I doubt if in the next century Ghana would arrive at such a quagmire where you literally had one person deciding whether there's a majority group or a minority group. And I think Fomena will have to be also written and has a place in the history of the annals of history of Ghana, in the sense that Fomena constituency determined, governance being majority or minority. And I take my hats off to the second Speaker of Parliament for that. And we welcome him back to the MPP. Yesterday I told him that welcome back to the MPP as a steward. And to conclude, I think that unfortunately, what I'm seeing is that many people still do not appreciate the work of parliamentary duties and how it really impacts governance. And I think that as I step away, one of the things I need to do is to ensure that many more people appreciate what parliamentary work truly is. And the fact that, the people's representative is the channel for really getting what we want out. And we were taken to the cleaners when we told our own government that, the pulse of the nation requires that we go in a different direction than what we're doing. And as it stands now, I think all of us are fallen because of what we call internal cannibalism. We were eaten alive for a position that we held, which was in the interest of Ghana. Though we were party men, we were talking largely for Ghana, and we swore an oath for Ghana. Though party took us, we swore an oath for Ghana, and I think that our grassroots or people can now maybe appreciate why 90+ members of parliament stood up against our own government to say that, wait, the pulse of the nation requires that we change trajectory or we change our path so that we can regain their trust and regain their love and confidence. And that was a very unfortunate bit. And though it was painful for us to express that, we had to do it. And there's one thing I need to clarify. I think whilst I have the opportunity, yesterday on Joy News, I saw a comment that was taken out of context, that I said that all members of parliament, and they changed it to pieces. I was very particular that the members of parliament who went into this battle spent quite a huge amount. I calculated an amount that some thought are quite huge. I mean, but bearing in mind, I mean, listen, monies we spent as members of parliament for work in our constituencies were also, common fund related. And if you look at the common fund we've used to show work in our constituencies, it's quite heavy. I won't now mention any figures. And if you take, for instance, in Sawema Dwejiri, where, we have our chief whip who did 4 astroturfs. Each astroturf alone is about, if I won't quote, not less than 1.2 million.
Okay.
So 4 astroturfs. And
so a lot of money is involved.
Yes.
As we wrap up the conversation, though, within 2 minutes, we won't be seeing you in the night parliament. We would be looking forward to what role you'll be playing.
Yeah.
In the next government, what role will you be playing to help the party, especially we're looking at galvanizing the base, looking at the massive defeat of the NPP?
Well, what is very clear to us is that the well-seasoned members of parliament are going to be outside. And we are going to bring the fight to the NDC administration, not at the chamber, but we'll work largely outside of parliament through communication, because communication is king. If you communicate well, you can really, make the government accountable to the people, and a lot more work will be done outside of parliament for us. We'll work hard to bring the party together and then make sure that 2028, Ghana gives the mandate back to us.
Thank you so much for your time. Member of Parliament for Anya Sotum in the studio, just giving us updates. Now, let me take you to the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court has unanimously thrown out a case filed by Richard Delasky and Dr. Amanda Odoi, challenging the passage of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, commonly referred to as the Anti-LGBTQI+ bill. Well, my colleague Blessed Suga has an interview with the lawyer for the plaintiff, Amanda Odoi. Let's listen in.
And obviously must come to a decision by himself, but I hope that in coming to that decision, that the rights of people will also be foremost in his consideration.
Please, do you feel that Parliament should go ahead and transmit the bill initially?
It's not about what I feel. I mean, it is not about what I feel. The court has made a decision, and I cannot tell Parliament what it should do. Yeah, so as I have said, we are disappointed with the decision. We did not take the decision to come to court lightly. We believe that the rights of people need to be protected. This is a private member's bill. The Constitution specifies the way in which private members' bills should be brought. We do not believe that it was done in that way. So when the Supreme Court says that, this was like a precipitate action, with respect, we respect his decision, but we disagree because it says Parliament shall not proceed. So at what point shall Parliament not proceed? Clearly, it cannot be after they passed an act. It is when they are considering it that they cannot proceed until they have done A, B, C, D. And we did not have the evidence that those procedural steps had been undertaken.
You are a human rights activist. What do you feel, what image do you think this will paint for the country looking at this latest?
Oh, well, we still have a rule of a country which is governed by the rule of law. We went to court. The court has given its decision. They're separate arms of government. The different arms can rule differently. We can also exhaust our different remedies. But we have not seen the full judgment of the courts. It says it will be ready on Friday. So we are waiting to see what the full judgment is. And then we will determine what remedies, what steps are available to us.
Okay. We've also seen countries influencing one another across the continent with regard to this legislation. What does this send to the rest of the continent?
Well, I mean, Uganda passed a bill like this. In the first time that it passed the act was challenged. The Constitutional Court ruled against the act. It went back again. This time, they were not challenging the procedural issues. They were challenging the content of the act. Largely, the court let it stand, although it said that some of the provisions were not right. So I hope that our courts learn from each other. They take steps from each other. But we still, as a human rights defender and as somebody who believes in constitutionalism, I take what the Constitution says seriously about protecting the rights of all Ghanaians, about not discriminating against any Ghanaians, So, but mind you, this action was not about the substantive provisions. It was procedural, yes. So we preserve our rights. When we came to court last year for an injunction, one of the things that was being urged on us by the Chief Justice was, why don't you wait? We have invalidated acts, so wait, let the act be passed. But we thought, still, because the Constitution allows us to bring an action.
Away from the court, Election Observer Group, CODEO, they are organizing a press conference to just brief the media about some of their key observations post the election 2024. Let's listen in.
ID officer who was helping us to validate the status. Then the last aspect will be victims platforms. So we will create platforms in the regions where we'll bring the surviving victims and also the families of those who are dead together with the CIDs, and it will seek to bridge the gap and clear suspicions of biases in the investigations, and also create support from the victims and their families to support the investigations. At least our 2020 film has indicated that the CIDs were complaining of the fact that the families were not cooperating. And even if they have had a hint, when they go to the communities to verify, people are afraid to give them the information. So this platform will seek to clear that and create a platform where there will be support for the investigations. So these are the three main steps that will be taken, but let me give you the details of the incidents as we have them. So I start with the status of the cases as we left them in 2022, where we ended the 2020 tracking. So in Banda constituency, recorded one person dying, and the details is as follows. And this is exactly what we're going to do for the cases you are recording. So it happened on the 14th of July 2020, where a student lost his life. We have the names, everything of the students. The deceased died from wounds sustained from stabbing by thugs who stopped the bus he was traveling on from Kabronum to Banda Hinkro. As at the time we ended our tracking, the docket had been forwarded to AG's office, and they were still awaiting advice from the AG. So we will add all these incidents to those we've collated this year and still follow the tracking. Doma West, one person died and 2 others sustained serious injuries when the MPP and the NDC supporters clashed at Inkran Kwanta in the Doma West district in the Bono region. At the time we stopped, the case had been forwarded to Wamfi Magistrate Courts for a hearing, but our field officer sat in the case for 4 times and all adjourned. The next agenda was December 15, 2021. As of now, we don't know whether they've completed or not, so it will be rolled back to this case, this year's docket, and we'll follow up. Odododio, 2 people died and 6 others sustained injuries. It was the December 7th jubilation that a gun was fired and hit those 2 people. At the time we completed, the case was still under investigation. At Ablikma Central, 1 person died and 4 others sustained injury. It was a shooting at Collation Center on December 7, 2020, during the completion of the election results. The suspect was being tried at the Accra Circuit Court at the time we ended the tracking. At Pandai, nobody died, but there was a serious clash between the NDC and the MPP supporters during a rally at Kumude, in the Pandai constituency on 6 December 2020. The case had been settled by the 2 parties involved, out of court settlement. Savlugu, 1 person died, a 14-year Samira, and 3 others sustained injury. Alleged that a civilian shot at a police station when people besieged the station on 8 December, killing the young girl. On that basis, 2 people were charged with unlawful possession of firearm at the Tamale Magistrate Court. When we ended, the case had gone to court, but it kept postponing and the hearing had not started. We also rolled back. In Techima and South, 2 people died and 6 others sustained injury. On the December 8, 2020, the security officer present at the Constituency Collation Center were alleged to have fired warning shots to disperse the crowd that had besieged the center, and this allegedly led to 2 deaths. The case was still under investigation when we visited for the validation. Awutu Senya East, nobody died. 4 motorbikes got bent on 20th July 2020 as chaos engulfed the Steps to Christ Registration Center in the Awutu Senya East constituency. 4 suspects who were being tried at the Cape Coast courts were granted bail at the time we visited for the validation. Nobody died, but we had 5 injuries. 5 persons were injured when some people attacked registrants at a Jumako Bisianse on allegation that foreigners were bussed to some polling stations to register. The case was still under investigation when we visited. Awutu Senya East again. On the 7th, and I think Awutu East this year too, we have about 2 cases from Awutu Senya East. On 7th December 2020, 2 persons sustained gunshot wounds near the Step to Christ polling station in Kaswa after some men in a black SUV fired at them. The case was still under investigation during our visits. Asante Akim, this involved 2 MPP groups that clashed during a campaign, but the case had been settled among themselves. For Mina, the EC office was set ablaze, but when we visited, the CID said they were still investigating those who caused that. So moving into 2024, what we realized is that in all the 8 previous elections, justice for most of the victims were yet to be served. And there has been little public information and updates on the cases. So this is our final from that. Now we move to 2024. And this is a report for 2024. Ballot papers were destroyed, and agitated supporters of the NDC and MPPC burned some pink sheets. The EC offices, some of the EC offices have been affected. And this is one of the scenes that you are seeing here.
Well, that's how we wrap up the bulletin. In subsequent bulletins, we'll be giving you more from that press conference by Kodeo. My name is Faustina Safa. For more news, please log on to myjournline.com. Good morning.